The "you cannot run dual pack for Star Wars Shatterpoint" I think is bad news for gamers. Now I know it's not the first and it won't be the last, but that doesn't stop me now saying I don't like it. I don't think this should be the way games are sold. Let me jump in, let me talk about it. So I made a video the other day and we were talking about the leaked images for this pack here. It's Star Wars Shatterpoint "you cannot run dual pack." And what it basically is that it's Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. Now Obi-Wan's going to be a secondary character and I think Darth Vader's going to be primary. And it's basically from the Kenobi TV show, which by the way I've not yet seen. I'm up to Book of Boba. Don't hate me, I'm behind, right? And it is literally a dual pack. There is a piece of terrain, like a scenery item that looks pretty cool, which is included, and then it's 2 different models. Now you will notice here that there are actually 2 unit stat cards. These are different models. This Obi-Wan Kenobi here is different from the one in the core set. Sorry, not in the core set, in his own pack that's coming out as well. And Darth Vader will be able to be going alongside the clones. So really interesting how they're doing that. It sort of makes sense, I guess, but like really interesting. But I think this is bad for gaming. I think this is bad news. So the main crux of the argument is that basically these 2 models that you're going to be able to use, to buy them you have to pay, well, $90 and you get the terrain. Many of you will be happy to have an iconic scene, a real cool looking like dual thing. You'll be happy out there. If you're a hobbyist, you'll be happy there. If you're just a gamer, you'll be like, why am I paying for something I'm not really going to use? The terrain is not usable really outside of that piece. You can probably take some of the thing like off it, like for example this spaceship here. You can probably take that, some of these boxes, etc. You can probably use some of it, but by default if you build it the way that it's intended, you're not getting much use of that out on the table. You'd have to sort of build it into a board or a bigger piece or something like that. So for gaming, this is bad. For hobbyists, you're possibly happy, right? You're not really bothered. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But I just think for gaming, it's really just not the way I would go. Now, I mentioned Marvel Crisis Protocol. Apparently they did 2 different like dual packs. So they first tried it without any rules and they just had like a scenic base with like models. I don't know exactly. I didn't play Marvel Crisis Protocol. And people were like, well, what's the point in buying it if there's no rules? And then they added rules and people were like, well, why are you adding rules now? It's behind a paywall. So people are saying, oh, they just can't win. You add rules, you get a problem. You don't add rules, you get a problem. You know what the solution to that is to not do these packs or do them in a way where maybe you do 2 versions. Could you not do a version where you buy this whole thing for $90 and then a month later the characters come out or something like that? Give people a little bit of a head start, maybe. I still wouldn't be overly thrilled with that, but at least let people just buy the characters if that's just what they want. Now I know you can maybe like print the rules and stuff like that. Let's not talk about that here. If you're going to go to events or you just want the cards, then obviously you're going to want to buy the pack. I mean, it's exciting to have Darth Vader that can go like across factions and across eras. I think that's really cool. It's exciting to have other Kenobi and stuff like that. Like, it's really weird because I want to be excited about it, but I'm just not by the way that it's sold. I already personally have a bit of a hang up where every model is sort of usable with every faction in a way. You can have 2 different squads from completely different eras, and then in the squad, as long as they're in the same era, it doesn't really matter. Like, I already personally not a huge fan of that, but then this sales model, I find it really distasteful. I just don't like it. Now, AMG are not the first and they won't be the last. This did actually happen with Legion once or twice, the main one being R2-D2 and C-3PO. Now, the difference here with these 2, in my opinion, is that terrain was sort of useful. You could put it on any board, it would actually make sense. I wasn't necessarily overly a massive fan of doing it that way, but I could live with it. And let's not get me started over on Games Workshop. The amount of books that they have you buy, it all gets a little bit crazy. I know like with Kill Team, for example, you're pretty much buying a new box every 6 months. They do tend to eventually release the rules and the models individually, which AMG is so far, I don't think that's actually happening. Maybe it is for Marvel Crisis Protocol, I don't know. So Games Workshop are in a different like level of awkwardness and sort of like bad behavior in a way. But even if other people do similar things, I don't think this is right. And there's one simple reason that they do this. It makes them the most money. Because now you get both sort of like buyers buying it. You have the hobbyists who just want a cool scene. They'll buy it. And then you have the gamers who just want the rules. They'll buy it. So for AMG, it's win-win. They're going to get this out of you. And there won't be enough people outraged enough, because it's not really worth being that outraged over, to be like, oh, I'm just not going to buy this and I'm not going to buy the game. That won't happen. That doesn't make any sense. If you want to play this game and the game looks pretty damn good, let's face it, and the models look really good, even these models here, right, they look pretty damn nice. Like, I'm very happy with the way they look. If you want those models and you want the game, you're just going to go ahead and buy it. And I don't blame you. I'm not trying to call for a boycott or anything like that. Sort of just a message to AMG. just don't do this. Just don't give us a terrain, just give us the models. Or give us both options. If you're that confident that there's enough hobbyists out there that will buy that version here, then prove it and release two versions. Release it with the terrain and without. The terrain sort of makes me think that they're going to get more profit per box than they would without it, because they feel like that they can charge the premium, and that's basically just extra profit. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't really know. So I know you're probably thinking there are some counter arguments. For example, you might say FFG did it, Games Workshop do stuff that's worse. Yeah, just because other people have done things that are wrong doesn't make that this wrong is still right. That's still not the case. And you can point to MCP where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Well, there's a third option there where they simply could choose not to engage in it. Or they could do both. You could have just sold these as 2 miniatures in a pack. Like, that would have been feasible, possible, no reason why you couldn't. And you could still do that and sell it with the terrain. Let people pick. But there's a very simple reason they won't do that. It's because then they have to like produce two. One of them will sell more than the other and they won't quite maximize the profits. But for gaming purposes, I think locking rules behind terrain purchases effectively, and they're not even like usable terrain, that for me just feels wrong. Now, you might be overly enamored by this. You might be like, oh, it looks great. You're very happy to buy it. Crack on. I'm not trying to take away your fun, right? But anybody who's watched my channel for any sort of period of time will know that if I see something I don't like in a sort of sales model way, I always flag it up, and I'm going to continue to flag it up. It is just the way that I am. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure you will. What you should definitely do though is have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.